It was the place to go for Dixieland jazz.
Bayou, to me, was a quintessential rock and roll joint. You know, it was the flat black, boom, boom, boom.
Over its 45-year history, the Bayou nightclub on the Georgetown waterfront was a scene of a lot of famous firsts. And some legendary last calls.
The Bayou turned out to be the perfect place to have that experience.
Don't you ever stop, 'cause I'm high on the dream and I don't want to drop down.
You have a whole history of the changes in American popular music.
And they're opening up the joint for one more night.
Wow, what goes on in this place?
We started off in this city, it's 20 years ago, I think, almost to the week or the month or something. You couldn't have all been there, though. There was only about 20 people in the building. I think it was called Bayou.
Pirates Den. I think that was the first club that was there. And all the waiters dressed up as pirates, and they drug people away from their tables and threw them in the brig, and the whole place was a raucous mess.
The murder happened down there, and they closed the club down.
Well, my father went down and padlocked the building immediately.
Mr. Nesline had followed Mr. Harding to that club, had followed him up the steps to the second balcony, and shot him.
There was a real gangland killing there, real violence, and it colored people's perception of the place.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Bayou.
The club began as the Bayou. Its genesis was in 1953. There were 3 owners at that time, a gentleman named Mike Munley, my uncle, Tony Tremonti, and of course my father, Vince.
Well, the way I understand, Mike was at the Knights of Columbus one night, having a drink at the bar, and he said, I'm going to open up the place, and we're going to feature jazz 6 nights a week. And Vince says, sure, I'd like to get a piece of that. Mike says, sure. He said, but I don't have any money. He said, that's all right, I'll loan it to you. And then while they were standing there talking, his brother Tony came in, and he said, I'd like to have a piece of that too, but I don't have any money. Mike says, hell, I'll lend you the money too.
Basically, that's how it happened. The 3 of them put up, I think they put up $5,000 each.
I know they got it for a song because the place was boarded up. And you know, the chairs and the tables and the chains and the dust and the dirt had been there since the speakeasy days, you know. In other words, when they opened that place, they took the boards off the door and they were ready for business, cobwebs and all.
My father and mother had been on a vacation, and you know, the Bayou was all over New Orleans. My dad said, what an appropriate name.
Oh, well, Mike Munley came down to the Charles. He said, I want you to take the band in there, but I want my nephew, Bobby Conway, to be the leader of the band. I said, great, bill it like this. Bobby Conway and the Dixie Six featuring Wild Bill Whalen. That way I don't have to worry about the band's problems. And I said, and I get my money on the side, I got my name up in lights, I've got all the pleasures.
The Bayou was a hit right out of the box.
I asked my dad, he said, how long was it before you turned a profit? I was expecting him to say 2 years. He said, we made a profit the first month.
Vince Tremonti was a lawyer, and you know, let's see if you can't run him down when you see him. But he had a good business sense on him. And then Tony would just kind of go along with almost anything. He was more fun to be with than Vince. Vince was very serious.
Mike Munley, who was kind of a carny type guy, you know, I had worked for him. He used to rent trailers.
Tremontis were dead on Italian. Mike Munley was dead on Irish. And I think that's why they didn't get along.
That lasted for a year, And then they had a falling out with each other, and they eased Mike out of the place, and the Tremontis took over.
I understand he got the squeeze job.
And with that, Mike's nephew, Bobby Conway, the piano player, he left too. So I got top billing in, took over the band, and ran the whole thing from then on.
And Waylon was the main force of the Bayou, I think, in the early 50s.
And then when we heard that Bill Waylon was down there, we stopped in there, and we liked what we heard, and we just kept going back for years.
They were there for a good time, you know. This was a club that had music, and it was loud music. And maybe you get a little action, you know. So you take a cab to this place over in Georgetown, you know, it's kind of sinister. It's under that freeway, you know, and it's dark.